Hello, today I'm going to show you the tools you need to paint a wood panelled and glazed door, and I'll then show you how to paint it. So we've got, it's surprising how many tools you need. What you've got here is a small roller tray with the smooth foam roller rather than the fluffy one, because that's good for satin wood paint or gloss paint, which is what we're going to do today. But that is, I tend to use this when we're perhaps painting several doors rather than just one. One I'd probably just paint with a paintbrush. We've got trusted just paper towel for clearing up any mess, scraper, another type of scraper, a couple of screwdrivers to take off the different fittings that are on the door, selection of paintbrushes. Those there, we've got a 1 inch, 1.5 inch and a 2 inch, so 50mm, whatever they are in English, I don't know, any old thing. So the old fashioned, we've got 2 inch, 1.5 inch and 1 inch. These are a reasonable quality easy clean brush from Wilko. They are really good value for money and they work. Screwdriver for opening the can of paint, a blade, knife to trim around the windows to get the excess paint off and to cut the top of the decorator's cork, another type of little filling whatever, trowel, useful. And we've got paint down here and a dust sheet. And my bag of tools, general bag of tools, which it's always, you always need more tools than you need. This is decorator's cork, which is used for filling in any gaps. These panels actually are in pretty good nick, so I won't be filling any of these today. But the decorator's cork is great for that, and it goes off fairly quickly. And it is flexible, and being decorator's cork rather than silicone, you can paint over it, although there are silicones these days which are paintable as well, but this is easily paint overable, and you can put it into the little cracks that you want to fill and smooth it out with I tend to smooth it out with a little paintbrush dipped in water. And then you've got general purpose wipes, one of these flexible sanding pads, which are really good. White spirit for cleaning down the door, and this I use a 120 grade sandpaper. One fill polyfiller I find good because as a professional painter it goes off very fast, dries very fast, and it's very lightweight, so it doesn't sag at ice. So if you put it into a big hole, it doesn't just go, it just stays put. Masking tape, dry lube, I use that for the hinges. It's a silicone based lubricant, but it's really good for hinges and also for taking the dusty bits out of the curtain rails and make them glide well. So that's that aspect of it. Then what we're going to do now, is take off all these extraneous bits I don't want, and I'm going to actually replace those with new ones. So I'm going to take all those off before I paint. I'm going to take this lock off because it'll be easier to paint without it on there. I'm going to leave the door handle because I'm reasonably confident about painting around door handles, but if you're not confident, take the door handle off, but make sure you keep the little bar that's in the middle of it and the handle your side of the door so as you can actually get out again, because otherwise you might find yourself locked in. So we'll take those off and then we'll go on to the next stage. Well, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the blade and the scraper just to take the excess old paint from around the glass here. you'll still see some of the paint coming through from the other side of the door. So it's really best, if you're going to do a glazed panel like this, to do both sides together, and then you can be sure that you've got it all nice and clean. Why is that flashing? Right, as you can see, we've now taken off all the fittings that were on the door. Those little hooks that are stuck onto the door, that actually came off quite easily just by putting a blade behind it, and that just pushed that off. Having taken those off, it makes it a lot easier to sand it down and also a lot easier to paint it. And also I'm going to put new fittings on in terms of the towel holders, so that will sort that out. But the next stage really is to cut round the glass, cut the excess paint from around the glass panels. So what I do with that is just to cut it like that carefully. The downside of the glazed panel is that there will be paint showing through from the other side, so your best really, if you're painting a glazed panel door like this or a window, is to do both sides together, and then you get an even line of paint both sides, rather than having one side where you can see, as you can on this at the moment. I don't know whether you can see, but there's about a 2, 3, 4 mil upstand of paint which is coming through from the other side. So probably what I would do is I would cut that back on the other side as well, and then you end up with a nice neat edge. So that's that there. Be careful with this because it's quite sharp. Use the blade carefully to take that off the glass. But if you're not confident using a knife, which a lot of people aren't, and if you don't think you can do it safely, use one of these little scrapers which have a Stanley blade in them, and then you can just go up to the edge and it'll cut round quite neatly. Right, so that's that aspect of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to carefully sand round the edge of the glass. Make sure you don't sand the glass as well, because otherwise you'll end up scratching the glass. So I just maybe use a sanding block like this, but angle it slightly away from the glass. And just do the edges like so. Or you can use the end there where there's no sandpaper on that edge. So that's quite a good way of doing that, and get that as tidy as possible. And then what we do is we either use a rough sanding block or the 120 grade sandpaper, just to rough up put a bit of a key on the old paint. I quite often leave some of the old marks because I think it's part of the character of the door. Because here you can see where the panel has actually broken at some point, so to me that's part of the history of the door, so I would actually probably leave that, but you may choose to sand it out and then put a little bit of filler in there just to make it perfect. But with older houses, I personally prefer them to look older rather than look like a modern house, because my view is if you want a modern house, buy a modern house. If you want an older house, buy an older house. But that's obviously just my personal preference. And then here you can see there's a lot of finger marks and grease on there, so we need to make sure that we get that off, sand it down and get it off with white spirit, and then the paint will stick to that quite happily. So we carry on with that, so we just sand that all down, get that all nice and ready, and then we'll go over it with the white spirit, let that dry, and then we'll paint it. Now I've cut off just a piece of the green 120 grade sandpaper and put it around the old sanding block. That seems to work quite well. So then I just sand down the door. And all those bits. Be careful not to catch the glass, and then you get outside the panels. Careful of the laminate floor. This here, as I said earlier, I've just sanded down that rough joint, but I'm not going to be able to fill it very easily anyway. And as I say, I think I'll leave that there because to my way of thinking that's still part of the character of the door. So with the sanding block being a bit flexible, you can get into the curves and things of the mouldings. Today what we'll do is we'll just paint the door all over in the same colour, but with a bit of practice it's reasonably easy to paint the mouldings a different colour if you like to, but we can do that in another video. If you're not confident with painting around the door handles, what I would normally do is to suggest you get some masking tape, because sometimes it's not always that easy to take the door handles off and put them back on again. But what I would do is go carefully up the edge of the door handle, making sure you get it as tight as possible to the woodwork, and go and I pull that round so it's once again right up to the edge of the door. And then similarly, make sure you don't get make sure that the tape actually covers the door handle, but also make sure that it doesn't overlap onto the door that you're going to paint, because if it does then you end up with bits missing off the door you're going to paint. And when you eventually take that off, when the paint's dry, just be careful how you pull it off. You pull it off and pull it outwards rather than like that, then it won't be tempted to tear the paint, because sometimes it might tear the new paint off, which would be a bit of a shame. The next job is to use the old trusty vacuum cleaner just to vacuum the bigger bits of the thing and the dust off and the floor, and get that all nice and neat and tidy. Then we go on to the next stage, which is cleaning down with the white spirit. Now we've come to the other side of the door, and we're going to prepare the edge of the glass again. I've put my glasses on this time, as you'll notice, because it's probably a good idea to wear either glasses or safety goggles when you're doing this, because it does some of the bits of paint do tend to leap out at you, so just be a bit careful. So anyway, what I've done with these is I've scored them down carefully with the knife, and then what I'm now doing is, I don't know whether you can see this, but I'm just putting the little blade, little sharp edge in there, just to take off the old paint that was stuck to the glass. I don't need that mode. Maybe if you can zoom in, you'll be able to see that. So that's sharp corner edge, just cut against the glass. Don't scratch the glass. And we'll just take off the excess paint. So when we paint the other side, we'll be able to see see. It's no bad thing to paint a little bit over the edge of onto the glass slightly, particularly if you're painting an exterior window, because then it stops the rain getting in, etc, etc. But here we want to try and keep it as clean as possible, so that's why we're taking the old paint away. We go up here again. I don't know whether you'll be able to see this, but hopefully you'll be able to zoom in with your pointy end into the edge, so it's there, or flat against the glass. Whichever bits that come flying out again. That'll clean that up nicely. And similarly there. And similarly there. That's a bit nasty there. There we go, there. Put that away. Similar play. And that shows you the principle of that manoeuvre, and then we use the trusty old vacuum to suck all that up, and then we'll go over it with the sandpaper and then the white spirit. In this door there's actually some more cracks this side. There's a crack there, and you can't see that there because I've got the camera in the wrong place, so I'm just going to move the camera. I'm just going to come a bit further, there we are, and a bit. That's it. So we're a bit further out now, and hopefully you'll be able to vaguely make out a little crack there. And there's actually a little crack on the side of the moulding here as well. So what I'll do is I will fill that with the decorator's cork, and then brush it in with a wet brush, and then that all can go off. But I'll just clean up the dust before I do that, because otherwise it'll just end up messing up my filling work. So, from the paint and the dust on my glasses, it's necessary to wear the glasses. So now I've prepared all that, and that's come up quite nice and tidy. So then we're just going to vacuum it off. I'm sure you all know what vacuuming sounds like and what vacuum is all about, so that's it. So now we've just sanded all this down with the Green 120 sandpaper, and then just use the flexible fillet one just to go around the mouldings, just to roughen them up, take out some of the damage marks from my wife's wheelchair. Once again, I'm going to leave that crack there because I think that little crack is part of the character of the door. But I will fill these bigger ones up because it does look a bit unsightly when you've got a nice, neatly painted door or skirting board or something. And then you see these great big black lines on it where there's gaps. So doors look a bit unsightly. So we'll fill those. After I'm just going to clean this off with white spirit, vacuum it off, and then clean it off with white spirit. And then let it dry, and I'll fill these little gaps in, and then we'll be ready to paint. Hurrah! Exciting! Well, you can see these darker marks here. Normally if I had some white, quick drying white acrylic primer, I'd probably just cover those in, but at the moment I haven't got it with me. Just do that, let that go off for an hour or so, probably inside it. Go off very quickly, maybe a couple of hours, and then you're ready to paint the satin wood. But I'm just going to go over that quickly with my white spirity rag, and then, as I say, we'll... Right, we're now on to the decorator's cork stage. This is the decorator's cork I showed you earlier on in the skeleton gum. I've previously cut the end of the decorator's cork tube off. Now what I'm going to do is just to cut the end of the nozzle somewhere where it doesn't hurt, hold it steady, and then just cut a 45-degree off the end. Otherwise it only slips on it. And then turn that round so the 45-degree angle. So the 45-degree angle is facing the job of work. And then what you do is you press keep pulling the trigger on the handle until eventually here it comes. So this is where we want, which we haven't got, I have a cloth I'll do. This is where we normally use our kitchen towel. But anyway, so here's the quite big crack that we found earlier. That one I've raked out or hooked the nasty old loose whatever was in there. I don't know what was in there, filler of some description. So I've taken that out because it's easier to take it out and then start again. So I'm going to fill that in, so I'm going to gently cover that with, keep my pressure on the trigger of the corking gun. Stop there. And then what I'm going to do is I've got just some ordinary tap water in a little painter's kettle with a sort of inexpensive brush. I'm just going to paint that into positions as it looks as if it's sort of been there forever. And that'll be that, so that's that little bit done. Then I'm going to do this corner, so fill that up. Once again, gentle pressure on the trigger of just so the cork starts to come out. Bit of a fiddle to get it into the corner there. So we do that one there. Once again, a little bit of water on the brush, and that will just disappear. So when that's filled, it will disappear nicely. And then down here is another great long crack. So to fill that, so once again, gentle pressure on the trigger, and then we're just going to run down, filling that up as we go. Best not to go back too often if you can help it. If you can keep going steadily, keep the pressure on, and then a little bit there as well. And get rid of that bit because that we don't want. Go into there. Then we get our little bit of a brush again, and then we just go woozy woozy woozy, woozy 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 woozy, woozy woozy woozy, woozy woozy, woozy woozy, woozy woozy. So it reminded me of Ozzy Osbourne then, but I was going to say woozy woozy woozy. No offence, mate. There we go, just put a little bit there. Ooh, yeah. Ooh, that's it. Woozy, 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 and it's all nice and smooth. You can't see it, unfortunately, probably from the camera angle, but that will be much better. There's probably a bit too much water in there now. So anyway, that's my fingers over the last 60 odd years have become a bit more used to some of these silicons and acrylics, but if you have problems with different substances, whatever, certainly wear gloves. It's best to be safe than sorry, as they say. Anyway, that'll dry off. That'll take, decorator's corks of professional quality should take about an hour to dry off. If there are any little cracks around the edge of the glazing, it probably would pay to put a little of the decorator's cork in there. But I think hopefully that will come up okay now. If once we put the first coat of paint on either the undercoat, or in this case we're going to use satin wood, so we'll just use 2 coats of satin wood. But if after the first coat it looks a bit patchy or there's holes, then we could always go back over those and fill those again with either cork or the filler that we showed you earlier. Anyway, so we're getting to the exciting part. This was the bit that you couldn't see earlier on, so as you see I put the decorator's cork in there, and the water from the little brush has made that quite smooth, so that'll be readily paintable over in about an hour. I hope you can see this all right. It's not going to be that easy, I don't think, but anyway, we'll try. So basically what I do is pick up a bit of paint. I just tend to turn it around like that. Take a little bit off the edge of the can. But what I'm trying to do here is to push the brush in. I don't know whether you can see that, but I'm pushing the brush hard, so then the bristles become quite sharp and pointy at the end. Don't worry about that drippy bit. So push them in tight against there, and then run it down the glass. A little bit onto the glass of paint is no bad thing. So we push it in again and go back up again, and hopefully that should go into those darker spots. There we are. I think that's it. As I said earlier on in the presentation, if there are some bits that are left over, i.e. some dark bits that just showing off up there, then it might go around before the next coat and just fill those in with a little bit of decorator's cork, and then it'll all look nice and tidy. But we're just going to push the brush down hard. You can see that, probably can't very easily. And then the brush is then much sharper against the glass. And then if you run the sharp edge against the glass, and you can run a little bit of paint onto the glass, that's not a problem. It's just you don't want excessive amounts, and that'll make it nice and tidy. The paint will then flow into some of those smaller holes. We just go across there like that. Tidy that up. Let's tidy that up again. There's a little bit of a gap there. And then we do a similar thing on the other side and the top. And then we continue that method. And then we put a little bit down there. And then what we will do is, I'm going to turn the camera on next time. We will go on to the roller method. Let's stop that there. What I'll do is I'll just show you on the glass what I mean about pushing the bristles in. So that's roughly how wide the bristles are. It's about 4 or 5 mil, maybe a bit more across. But then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push them against the glass here, and then they become almost flat, so they get down to next to nothing, and then that makes it much easier to cut in. Don't worry about me painting the glass, I can soon wipe that little bit off with a piece of kitchen roll. I've now finished painting the top of the door, the top panel and the glazed panels there. They haven't come up too badly. I think there are some areas that I'm not particularly happy with, so I'd probably do a little bit of filling with a bit of cork in those before I do the second coat. But for a first coat, as we're not changing the colour, it doesn't seem to be too bad. What I'm going to do next is to paint the mouldings around here, get those settled in, and then I'll pour some paint into the little mini roller tray and paint the rest of it, or most of the rest of it, with a little mini gloss roller. You'll notice that I've put some masking tape under the edge of the door. What I do is I put it right along the edge of the door, then another one just to make it a bit wider. Then I open the door and put a couple of strips the other side, so then hopefully it protects the laminate floor or carpet or whatever might be under there. So we'll start with doing these mouldings, which is really just a matter of, hopefully you can see that all right. We're just going to go in there, get it into all the little nooks and crannies, and the satinwood paint doesn't actually drip too much, but also it doesn't flow quite as well as gloss paint. But anyway, it should give us the desired effect of a sort of satiny finish. Hurrah! And there we are. All around there. All nicely coloured. Stick the brush in to all the little nooks and crannies and push it in like that if you find it easier to get it into the nooks and crannies. I'm using a smaller brush today for doing the mouldings and for doing the glazing on the window, but there's no shame in using whatever size of brush suits you best. If you like a smaller brush, particularly if you've got older arthritic hands, a smaller brush creates less drag, and you'll find that quite helpful. There we are, we'll just do a little bit on that one. There may be a bit there that probably need a bit more filling at some point. I'll just put that in there. And we'll finish that off, and then we'll move on to the mini roller with the little glosser head on it. Right, we now put a little bit of paint into the roller tray. Don't put too much at a time in because it does go quite a long way. I'm using the glosser roller, which is the smooth roller rather than the furry one. And that'll be better, that'll be fine for satin wood or undercoat or gloss paint. And then we're just going to roll that gently into the paint, roll it back and forth, get a nice coverage on the whole of the roller. There we are, so it's all nicely covered. If it gets a bit thick, just let it, just roll it out a bit more. Then we're just going to roll it in. As I say, I'm going to leave that crack there because to my way of thinking that's a bit of a part of the history of the door, and probably the size it is, I probably wouldn't be able to fill it up very well anyway. So there we are. That is as simple as that to do that panel. Those air bubbles from the roller should just dry out naturally. Certainly if it's gloss paint, they'll go down flat nice and easily. And I'm just going to go up and down here. Let's go over it so it's nicely covered. And then across there. Fortunately we've got the masking tape along the floor, so we don't have to worry too much about the floor. Go up the edge of the door there, go up to there, got the bit we prepared earlier, and now I do that panel. Just go in there quickly, and you see it is just the preparation that takes the time, very long-winded the preparation, that's the important. Just go over that gently with the roller again just to get rid of some of the air bubbles, but hopefully those should just gradually dry out. We've cleaned that bit down. As you remember, that was all covered in a lot of greasy hand marks, so cleaned that down thoroughly with the white spirit, and now this should go over and stick to it fine. See some little pinprick holes in the bottom there where the old draft excluder was at one time or another. I've left these holes in here because there's a door lock to go back on, and I'm going to refit the towel holders, so those will cover up those blemishes. Put it down out of the way, and we've previously masked around the door handle, so that makes it a lot easier to go around without the fear of I'll just go around the door handle with a little brush. Just go gently around there. Oops, put it now on the handle. So we can easily, as it's water-based paint, we can wash that off. The main thing is if you do make some errors and get the paint on other bits and pieces where you don't want it, the main thing is to clean it up straight away. If it's water-based, just soapy rag or just water on a rag will clean it off. If it's oil based, then white spirit will bring it off, but just take it off straight away and then you've got no worries. If it's on glass or something like that, you can either wipe it off or you can potentially scrape it off later on. Those air bubbles now in the roller marks are now they're now just disappearing, so that should be fine. Then I'll just finish off around the edge with the brush. It just shows how much quicker it is to do it with a roller. That's this side of the door pretty well finished, apart from putting the door lock and the towel rails back and maybe doing a bit more filling and one more coat on that, but it looks pretty good already. So another coat and that'll be great. I'll just quickly in a minute show you painting the other side of the door, because it'll be easier hopefully to see how to paint round glass. I'm just going to quickly show you how to paint the around the glass this side, because it'll probably be easier to see how the paintbrush works. I'm going to go in here, hopefully you'll be able to see. So basically we're going to go in, push it in hard so it's nice and sharp, running along the edge of the glass. You get a little bit on the glass, mil or so on the glass is acceptable, that's no problem. And basically when you're painting both sides of a window, if there's a little bit of a black line show through from one side or the other, basically makes sense to paint to it, so you just see the paint rather than a nasty black line. Sometimes there's not many metal window frames left these days, but sometimes it can be a problem with metal window frames. And then we're just going to go push it in hard so it's nice and the bristles are nice and pointy to make a nice sharp edge. And cut down there. And having painted that now, I can see that I could do with a bit more decorated cork in there just to clean up that nasty black edge, which you probably can't see on the film. Don't know whether you can see this lower one here. I'll just quickly do that. I think it's just slightly out of shot, but I'll just show it because then, so I'm putting the brush at about a 45-degree angle and then cutting that in at an angle, nice and gently, keep standard pressure on it, and then it'll allow you to just go on however long a piece of glass or whatever it is. You can just, once you've got the pressure at the right level, then it's easy to maintain a nice even line. See any of that, not sure. There we go. So, here we are. And we'll just then carry on the decorator's cork that I put in earlier and that washed in, that should now have gone off hard, so that's now ready to paint. So hopefully once that's painted over, that should come up quite nicely. There's a bit of you can see a bit of a line there, but that, in my way of thinking, is character in an old door. And character goes a long way in an old door. So push it in a nice angle, about 45 degrees angle of the brush. Keep the pressure at the same level all the time, and then your line will stay pretty even. You can always practice this on a piece of paper if you want to just try it out, just to get the feel of it. But you can always paint it again if necessary. Right, thank you. Just thought I'd quickly show you how to paint the other side of the door, because hopefully the glazing bars on which all works make it a bit easier to see how I'm doing it. As you can probably see, the brush is about sort of 6mm thick, something like that. So what we want to do with that is we press it down on the edge of the window hard like that at about a 45-degree angle, and that then makes the bristles all nice and sharp and fine. Pays to have a good brush. These are Wilco brushes, they're better quality brushes and we find them excellent. And we paint, 50% of our business is painting, and they do a perfectly excellent job. So basically we get the, as I say, press the brush down at an angle of about 45 degrees and then just maintain an even pressure, and then just take that along there and then take it back again. You probably can't see it on the film, but there are a few little black marks showing there, so what I will do is I'll go back over and fill those with decorator's cork again run the marker with the wet brush, wet it in the water, and then that'll all go nice and smooth. After about an hour that'll be dry again, and then we can just finish off that bit. It'll just look that much neater. Well, that's it. The main thing is to practice, but sometimes it pays to perhaps practice on a piece of old paper, on an old table or something like that, just to sort of get a feel for the pressure. That's the key to it, is to put it down, press it down about 45 degrees and maintain a standard pressure. And then that'll all be great, and then I'll finish that off with the brush and the roller, but you don't, I'm sure, want to waste your time watching me paint the rest of that. Thank you very much indeed, and I hope you find this useful. Just painting this other glazing barn, there's a certain amount of gaps you can fill with the flow of paint. So here we are, we're at 45-degree angle, just going to run it back towards the camera. That makes a nice pressure, nice even pressure, and then you get a nice finish. Similarly on the upright one here, we push this in tight. There's a little bit of different colour of grey-black showing through from the paint from behind. So we're just going to maintain the pressure, go down there like that. Even with cutting the paint at the back, or front of the door as it was, there's still, I can still see a little bit of greyness, darkness, so what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to go over that, just a bit wider with the paint, because personally, I think that looks better having it slightly wider paint mark than to see the grey bits. Cover the second coat. Thank you. It's the finished door with all its new finery attached. It's only actually had one coat because it was just no change of colour, just sort of freshening up the other one, so it doesn't look too bad. There's a few little bits that could be add a little bit of filler to if you want to, but anyway, overall it seems to have done the job. The side where we did the bit of filling, that seems to have gone off quite nicely, and it just gives you a better idea of what the finished article is like. This will give you a better idea of what the finished article looks like with all its new regalia on. And I found the little Stanley thing that I was referring to earlier, the little scraper. That's ideal for going around the window panes. It gives you just the right amount, at least just the right amount of paint on the edges to make a nice seal. And we are just got to now paint the rest of the room.